Ravensrise by Claire Casey. Chapter 28. Freydis forced herself to open her eyes. The ground was wet beneath her, pressing into her back and forcing her to move. As she tried to roll onto her side, every part of her body complained in unison. Groaning, she pushed herself up into a sitting position. Looking up, she studied her surroundings, expecting to see danger wherever she looked. She was still next to the river, with the water lapping at her feet. The sun was already high in the sky. Not wanting to think about how long she'd been lying there, Freydis got to her feet before hobbling towards the forest. Stopping at the tree line, she held onto a low branch, hoping to keep herself upright as she caught her breath. Peering into the darkness, she was certain that something was looking back at her. It unnerved her. She could feel eyes on her. They were hidden, but they were there, watching her every move. The sound of something whizzing past her forced her to drop to her hands and knees. Clambering behind a tree on all fours, she looked back the way that she had just come. Fuck. Shit, Freydis swore as she spotted the archer on the other side of the river. Staying low, Freydis scuttled further into the forest, hoping to throw the archer off her scent. Crouching down behind a fallen tree, she couldn't hear him, but she knew that he was there. The silence was finally broken by the sound of the archer splashing through the river. "Come on, sweetheart. I'll promise I'll make it quick," he mocked her. "I'm not like the others. They'd have tortured you first. They're sick like that. But I'll make sure that it's quick and clean." Staying quiet, she tried to control her breathing. Peeking through a small gap between the ground and the trunk of the tree, Freydis found two brown eyes looking right back at her. "There you are," the archer laughed. "So you like playing games? That can make this interesting." Before he had the chance to get around the trunk, Freydis ran with her breath rattling in her lungs. She felt sick and her body was screaming at her. She hadn't gone far when she felt the hot, searing pain of it as an arrow tore through her left shoulder. Falling forward, she heard a scream. Despite the fog that filled her thoughts, she realised that it had come from her. "Please, please," she begged as she crawled along the forest floor. As tears stung her eyes, she couldn't even bring herself to look back. "It doesn't bother me if I shoot you in the back," the archer told her as he walked closer to her. "You'll be nothing more than another dead rebel bitch, and I can get back to the others in my company." Stopping suddenly, the archer hissed to himself before muttering something under his breath. Glancing back, Freydis found the archer peering into the gloom of the forest, his longbow raised, ready for the arrow to fly at its next target. "Where are you, you fucking coward?" he screamed. Following the archer's gaze, she watched as a figure stepped out from amongst the trees. Staring at it, Freydis could not take her eyes off him. She was guessing that what she was looking at was male. In all but one way, he looked like a tall man, dressed in a deep green hooded cloak. The hood hid his face, but did nothing to hide the antlers that grew from his head. The archer loosed at him, but the arrow hung in mid-air, harmlessly spinning. The man that it had been aimed at stood in front of it, studying it as it hung there. Looking at the archer, the man in the green cloak tilted his head to one side. "You dare come to my forest and attempt to kill someone who's come here looking for sanctuary? Did you think that there would be no consequences?" the green man asked him. "There is no sanctuary here. This place is not sacred," the archer replied, his voice cracking slightly. Dropping his bow, he drew a large knife. The green man said something in words that Freydis did not understand. The minute that the words had left the green man's lips, the archer dropped to his knees. The knife dropped to the ground as the man grasped at his throat. As he struggled to breathe, his face turned red and his eyes bulged. "This is my realm," the green man told him. "All who find themselves within it are under my protection. But trying to take the life of another within my realm, you have forfeited any protection that I would have offered you. Your life is now mine to take." With one final struggle, the archer fell forward. Now he was nothing more than a crumpled pile at the green man's feet. Walking away from the archer, the green man held Braith's gaze. Freezing where she was, he watched as he stopped in front of her. "Has he hurt you?" the green man asked, as he crouched down next to her, lowering his hood as he did so. Hesitating for a moment, she shook her head. Freydis struggled to say anything. Seeing his face clearly for the first time, she found herself drawn to his clear blue eyes. "What? Who are you?" Freydis asked, forcing the words out. Smiling at her, the man nodded. "In relation to who I am, my name is Hern. What I am? I am the spirit of the forests. Your people refer to my people as the Fae." "You're of the Fae?" Hern nodded. "Now, before you ask any more questions, let me have a look at your shoulder." Staying as still as she could, she let Hern move closer to her. When he placed his hand on her shoulder, she cried out. The arrow was in deep. Bracing herself, she expected the arrow shaft to be snapped, ready for what was left in her shoulder to be pushed through the other side. Instead, a warmth filled her shoulder, emanating from where Hern had placed his hands. Even when he lifted his hands away, the warmth remained, only to gradually fade away. What pain had been there before was now gone. Moving her shoulder, it felt as if nothing was there. "That's all of it out," he told her. Turning to face him, Freydis felt her jaw drop open slightly. "How?" "Magic. I removed all the arrow and I've started the healing process, but the injury will take a couple of days to fully heal. There's an encampment of my kind nearby. I would suggest that you stay with us until your shoulder is better. Then you can do as you wish. You can even return to your war, if you want to, or you can stay here," he told her, helping her to her feet. "You know of the war on magic?" Freydis asked, only for Hern to nod in reply. "Why don't you fight to defend those of my kind who can use magic?" Staring off through the trees, Hern's face darkened. In the shifting light of the forest, Freydis was certain that his eyes shifted colour. "The Fae chose to step out of the world of man a long time ago. We allowed ourselves to pass into your myth and legends to protect ourselves. The Fae were hunted down and slaughtered because it was believed that we ruled this realm and were enslaving mankind. Many on both sides lost their lives. There were more deaths than I was able to count," he told her. Memories of the old stories flashed through Freydis' thoughts. It had always been the same, but as a child, she never understood why some mourned the loss of those with the greater magic while others celebrated. Had any of them really known the truth? What am I to do now? Looking down at the body, only a short distance away, she looked back at Hern. What about him? Once your shoulder is fully healed, you can decide on what you can do. It would be completely up to you what you do. Leading her away from where the archer was lying, he followed a faint track through the trees. Don't worry about the man who attacked you. His body will be dealt with all of the respect that he deserves. Continuing to follow Hern, she didn't look back. Walking further from the river, Freydis listened to the sound of voices, all speaking a language she didn't understand. Come on, it's only a short distance now, Herne told her, as he looked back at her. Pushing our way through the undergrowth, Freydis halted at the edge of the large clearing. Small huts were dotted through it. Figures flitted through the clearing. From a distance, they all looked human. But with all of them, there was something that gave them away as being something more. She couldn't put her finger on it. It was something about the way they moved. Some were shorter and looked like children, until you looked at them more closely. Others were taller than she'd ever seen anyone be before. "We have a guest," Herne announced to the others in the clearing before turning back to Freydis. "While you are here, you will be under our protection. No one will be able to hurt you." The sun had long since dropped behind the trees, leaving the forest in the shadow. A bonfire sat in the middle of the clearing, providing them all with the light that they needed. Sitting to one side, Freydis kept herself to herself as she watched the others. "After what you've been through, I hope that you're settling in all right," Herne stated as he sat next to her. "There was something that you said earlier on today. It's been playing on my mind," Freydis said as she continued to stare into the flames. "What was that?" "You said that the Fae left the world of men and retreated to places like this. Why? Why not defend yourselves? Why walk away from it all when power was yours?" Freydis asked. "I was young at the time," Herne stated. "I can remember Fae and mankind ruling side by side. Things weren't always peaceful, but that's to be expected. It was a time of light and reason. That all changed when a group of men began to travel through Arla, preaching that magic was the source of all evil, and that all who used it was enslaving those around them." Pausing, he allowed himself to be lost in thought for a moment. Frowning, he absently-minded scratched his cheek. Those men managed to gather an army large enough to challenge everything. They started a war that led to more destruction than I care to remember. No matter how we tried, the Fae faced defeat after defeat. We finally retreated to the edges of Arala, where we wouldn't be disturbed by mankind. "We were safe here," Herne told her. "That's not how some people see it," Freydis told him. "There are some who claim that the Fae seized control and became tyrants. They believe that the men who fought against the Fae freed Arala from their cruelty." "Stories are always told from the point of view of the teller. Always be careful with who is telling you the story," Herne answered. "How do I know that you're not lying to me now? There are stories of the Fae crossing paths with my people, only to bring pain and death to those they meet. It's up for you to decide whether to trust me or not," Herne answered. "There have been members of the Fae who do venture out of our realm and into the wider world. Luckily enough, those encounters are few and far between. When they do happen, they don't always end up well for the humans involved. There are only the stories that you've been told. We've been stories of our own, which don't have happy endings." "What do you mean?" "About 3 centuries ago, a young woman who had just lost a child of her own stumbled into the forest. We took her in the hope of helping her, but after a few days she had disappeared. When we realised that she'd gone, we also discovered that she'd taken my infant son with her. We tried to track her and bring my son back, but there was no trace of them. It was as if they disappeared into thin air," Herne answered. Not knowing how to respond, Freydis sat where she was, her gaze fixed on Herne. The flames from the fire threw his face into sharp relief. "Every few decades I feel a hint of something that I sense in my son. For a while I hadn't felt it, but it's returned. This time it's stronger than it was before," Herne continued. "Do you think that your son is still out there?" Freydis asked him. Shaking his head, Herne continued, "No. The Fae are long-lived, but we are mortal. Plus, every time I sense it, it's been in a different person. There's someone out there who's more powerful than they realise. Find them, and they may find the person to end this war.